Welcome to Ohana Woodworks. This video is going to show how my son and I built two longboard skateboards from scratch out of maple and walnut that was harvested and dried from our farm. Thanks, and please subscribe. We started planing an ambrosia maple board about 2 inches thick, then to the bandsaw to make the board more manageable, then to the joiner to make the board flat, and then after that over to the planer to make both sides parallel. We then milled some walnut pieces to add on the ends. They were about 2 inches, and then glued them up. We pulled the boards out of the clamps and used a hand plane to flush the walnut to the maple. I wanted to give the board an old school look, so we split the maple down the side and added another approximately 1/4 inch piece of walnut to the board. The accent strip was sanded and jointed, glued and clamped together. Once the glue dried, we once again hand planed the accent strip down so it was flush and the board was almost flat. This time my son and I drew out the first template on a 1/2 inch piece of plywood, marked the center lines and where the wheel trucks were going to be located at. We then went to the bandsaw and cut out a rough outline for the board. We then went to the sander and sanded to the line to make it oval and symmetrical. After making that board almost perfect, I then resawed the long board at the bandsaw, but however I screwed up the video, unfortunately. So then once we had two boards made out, we decided to see what it would look like with the wheels and trucks. So we marked out the lines and put all the wheels and trucks together to see what this board was going to look like. We wanted both boards to be light, flexible, and strong, and decided to make one board out of solid walnut and maple, about a 1/2 inch thick, and then the other one we milled down to about a 1/4 inch. I had a spare piece of 1/8 inch maple plywood that we decided to laminate to the other board for additional strength. We did this as an experiment to see how it would compare the solid wood longboard to a laminated longboard. And you'll see at the end that both of them came out outstanding. They're light, strong, and flexible for both. We left that dry and clamped overnight, and then in the morning my son took it over to the router and trimmed the 1/8 inch maple plywood on the router with a pattern bit. Then we took the solid 1/2 inch board over to the work table and used spoke shaves and sanded the final pattern. After the laminated board was completed, we decided to drill the holes for the trucks and wheels. We used one of the spacers for the trucks and a 3/16 inch drill bit to mark the center of the where the screws were going to go. The most important lesson we learned here is before you drill the holes, and while the board is still square and straight, is to draw the center line on the board, and the center line going long ways and sideways, so you know exactly where the center of the board is and where you want to mark where the trucks are going to be. We then put a 1/4 inch roundover bit in the router and rounded both sides of the board. Shortly after that, we decided to put the boards together and give them a test ride to see if any other modifications were going to be needed, or if the wheels were rubbing when it was turned. All of the pre-planning paid off, especially marking the board its center line going vertical and horizontal when we drilled the holes, and the board went together very easily. The test rides went great. The boards were flexible, strong, and very light. The only modification we determined we needed to do was cut out on the one old school board, is cut out some wheel wells so there's some clearance for the wheels so they don't touch the board or the wood. To make those cutouts for the wheel wells, we had the vertical lines where the trucks were at. I measured 2 inches on each side, found a pleasing curve, and marked that out and took it over to the bandsaw to cut it out. Then we took it back over to the router table with the 1/4 inch roundover bit. Then we completed the final touches and for the wheels and trucks for the old school longboard, surfboard type skateboard. Obviously, skateboards need a durable, weatherproof finish, so we decided on a spar urethane oil-based, which was sprayed on. We ended up putting 3 coats on each side. After each coat, we sanded with 220 grit sandpaper between each coat. One of the most important parts of the finish was to put some sort of gripping material on the top of the board, that would not detract the eye from the visual aspects of the solid wood. So we put on a heavy coat of varnish, thick, and then sprinkled on the crushed sandblast glass material. And then after that dried, we added 2 more coats of spar varnish on top of that, and it worked out perfect. Once everything cured, we let it cure for about 3 days. We put the boards together. This project was an absolute joy to work with my son. He learned a lot. I encourage a lot of people to work with their children to make something like this with these boards. It was a learning experience for both of us. My son and I hope this inspires others to do the same. Mahalo. Once my son showed his friends what we had made, they ordered 2 more. One we made out of cherry and maple, and we did a resin board out of maple. They came out amazing.